بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، إن معه جبل خبز ونهر ماء فيأمر السماء فتمطر والأرض فتنبت. Dajjal will move with the water, the food, agricultural reserves of earth with him in his control. As the people of Iman, we may ask, what can we do? A lot. One is effort on Iman. How strong is my Iman that when this fitan come, I will be protected? How strong are the Amal? How strong is my Amal? Somebody is preparing for war, they've got artillery, they've got weapons, they know what they're against, so they prepare accordingly. If there's a big war, there's a great war, the enemy is bigger, more powerful, etc., preparation becomes more intense. Likewise, Nabi alayhi salam has warned us of the coming of Dajjal, the coming of death. As a believer, I'm making an effort on Iman constantly, making effort on Amal constantly. And asbab wise as well, what effort am I making to become independent on these systems? Do I have a garden at home where I grow all my food sources? Do I have an alternate place to grow it? If I don't have space, do I have long life food storage systems in place? Do I have backup water systems? Then on a bigger level, as a community, what agricultural, what water procurement systems, water security, food security, as a country, all the people of Iman, how much do we control the food supply chain from the farm to the end product? And then globally as an ummah, how much influence do we have? What farmer networks do we have? What laboratories, what programs do we have in the seed market, so that the ummah is not reliant on these systems? What 2 rakat salat I can read it, and if I don't have these seeds, I'll be able to draw. If I don't have water for my farm, I'll be able to draw the clouds from the sky to water my farm. So Amal concurrently, asbab wise and Amal wise, we need to make effort. The Dajjali system is in place. What system do I have? So this talker, this deception, this plan, this plotting, I shouldn't be part of it. I should see through it. So there's a big difference. A Nabi came with da'wat. A Nabi was a da'i. Practically what he was inviting towards was in his life. His way of life matched what he said. That is Nubuwwah. Then you get philosophers. They use logic to prove their point, but everything they say, nothing is in their life. It's just a philosophy. Then you get the third level where you have politicians, where they speak lies to convince people. Their life is contrary, completely opposite to what they say. They say, we are to look after you, save you, but they'll abscond your wealth. They will usurp the state powers. They will use and abuse the power that has been given to them. And the last stage is the Dajjali system, which is even worse than this here. So we have to see through all of this here. Speaking about politicians, there was a busload of politicians that were on a country road, and it plowed into a tree, overturned, crash, and there was blood everywhere, glass. A farmer that was nearby seen the crash and was first on the scene. So he realized, hey, let me just sort it out. So he got his excavator, dug a hole, and buried all the politicians. So it so happened that many days later, the sheriff of the area was passing by when he seen the wreckage of the bus. So he asked the farmer what had happened. So he said, no, this is the story. So the sheriff said, were they all dead? The farmer said, well, some of them said they weren't, but you know how these politicians lie. Some of them said they weren't, but you know how these politicians lie. So we need to see through all of this here. We need to see it through the deception of shaitan, through the deception of nafs. Malik bin Dinar Rahimahullah, you say, Rahimallahu abdan qala li nafsi. May Allah have mercy on that servant who addresses his nafs and says, Alasti sahiba kada, Alasti sahiba kada, thumma dhammaha. Aren't you so and so? Aren't you so and so? You deceived me. You did this to me. You made me lie. You made me look at haram. ثم ختمها ثم ألزمها كتاب الله فكان لها قائدا. When you tie this nafs up, bind it and make it subservient. Let it, like a horseman who's controlling a horse, let our lives be controlled by Quran and Hadith. فَكَانَ لَهَا قَائِدًا. This will be a yardstick, a criteria for your salvation. Make Quran and Sunnah your imam. So these horses that are going to their destination, if they follow the horseman, they'll reach their destination. If they don't, they may reach destruction. Sufyaan Thowry Rahimahullah used to say, الزهد في الدنيا هو الزهد في الناس وأول ذلك زهدك في نفسك. There's different stages in the dunya with regards to abstinence, but the beginning is the nafs, to control this nafs and to make sure you don't give in to the nafs. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us iman, Allah has given us solutions. We need to turn to Allah to find the solution. No matter what hal, what condition, what difficulties. Somebody may be panicking, it's close to Qiyaamah, halat in conditions. Somebody may be panicking, we are on the brink of a global catastrophe, la ilaha illallah. Somebody came to Hazrat Maulana Thani Rahimahullah and said, I've been so much difficulties and problems. If suicide was permissible, I would have done it. So what did Hazrat reply? He said, if difficulties, hardships, problems were bad, then Allah would not place them on Anbiya, Ashadun Nas Bala. So who went to the hardest, most difficult times? It was Anbiya alayhimus salatu wassalam. So make dua for afiyat, for peace, for protection, for hifadat. But if it does come your way, then make sabr, adopt patience, and be happy with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rida bil qada. Be happy with the decision of Allah. So you have trust in Allah. He is Hakim. He is the most wise and He knows what's good for us. So part of this global plan is the agenda to push chemical fertilizers, because again it's a global network controlling the systems and preparing for the one world order, the one world system for Dajjal. So these chemical fertilizers, besides the health risk to farm workers, the erosion in soil, but it puts farmers in debt as well. So the Gates Foundation is one of the world's largest promoters of chemical fertilizer. So they want to build a fertilizer supply chain, and part of this was the African Fertilizer Agribusiness Partnership, and they want to do double, triple, quadruple fertilizer use in Africa. So they've put people in key positions to push farmers and make them dependent on these fertilizers. So recently also from Ghana to Mozambique to Tanzania, There was a project where 225,000 tons of fertilizers were provided. So they want farmers to start becoming dependent on this system. So and they've partnered with all the major organizations. The IFDC, International Fertilizer Development Center, is also pushing this agenda. So between fertilizers, then the patented seeds. So AGRA has a seed policy, and globally they've lobbied and they've got their fingers everywhere, but now they're pushing the African governments, because you must remember, if there's a hole, there's a breach, if they tie the knots everywhere, but there's one loose knot, it may infiltrate and kill their system. So Africa is one of the few last continents which they need to take control of. 80% of Africa's seed supply comes from small-scale farmers who are recycling and exchanging the seed from year to year. So it's in their own system. The ACB, which is the African Center for Biodiversity, says that now at the moment there's a battle being waged over Africa's seed systems. So USAID, G8, BMGF, they've opened the door of these multinational corporations who are involved in seed production. And besides acquiring all the seed enterprises globally, but in each country as well, they infiltrating, and these hybrid seed varieties are pushed and been promoted. So there was a secret conference in London which information had leaked. It was organized by, again, the Gates Foundation and USAID, multinational corporations, and then discussion was to push fertilizer and patented seeds. So part of that was to create a agro dealer network. So go into the rural areas, informal areas, private stockers, the different body corporates into Africa. So basically it's a monopoly, and they've created seed laws and they've used this against farmers. It's like criminalizing the industry, and anybody who uses the normal natural diverse crop system, they ostracize them. And the question is seed sovereignty. So if we look at it, over the centuries, farming was not regulated, was not controlled. It reproduced, it continued, it sustained itself, and it could not be commodified, if we can put it. So even farmers would exchange seeds. But what has happened now is these bioengineered crops, to protect these corporations, the big four, Bayer, Corteva, Chem, China and Limagrain, controlling 60% of the world's seeds. This is literally dominating the global food supply. So imagine, from 60, obviously exponentially, if you look at the data, they swallow up these smaller companies, and eventually will move into 3, 2, maybe even 1 eventually, who control the global food supply. And besides human consumption, the animals as well. So if you control the food supply, is what varieties, what are important, what are critical. So if you look at it, there were channels of distribution, there were channels of exchange in seeds, but now they've become, the seed banks have become less diverse. 75%, this is the UN Food and Agricultural Report, 75% of the world's crop varieties have disappeared in the last 100 or so years. So local, adapted, natural crops are being replaced with these standardized varieties, and this is causing serious grave consequences for food security. So la ilaha illallah. So they want to, these major producers, these multinationals, want to push genetically modified bioengineered seeds, and they regulate it, make it law, and outlaw tradition. So how farmers were doing farming, they want to do away with it. And once you lose a skill, you're gone. So they're bringing them onto these new systems. So through the patenting of genetically modified seeds, now they've put it into intellectual property. They've legislated it, and it's called the PVP, Plant Variety Protection. So initially, over time, people planted their own range of crops, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His system, it adapted and it worked. It's been working. Now what's happening is there's a uniform, a consistent genetic pool. Now we become more vulnerable to different situations, to different environmental stresses, and when the time is right, they want to control the market bi'idhnillah. So we could actually label it as neo-colonial agriculture. So go up from the US to Canada, up to the other side of the world, Japan, Switzerland, European countries, European Union. So they've got their bilateral, they've got their regional trade agreements. Now they pushed in pressure on countries that are not joining these agreements, and it's part of the global plan. So when you have some uniform rules on a global scale, then the industry becomes industrialized, becomes controlled, and it does not only destroy, it does not even compromise the livelihood for humans and for animals as well, la ilaha illallah, but even the environment, because you've got a standard seed, it'll change their entire agricultural system completely. The map, the makeup, the coding for agriculture will swap. So from these seeds to fertilizers to pesticides, the entire system. They don't want you to survive on your own. They don't want you to be autonomous. They want control, and they call it indigenous agriculture. It's outdated, it's backward. So kullu shay yarji'u ila aslihi. We need to go back in time. We have to go back to sunnah. We have to go back to deen. So if we look at the numbers alone, it's enough. And go back statistics maybe 10, 15 years ago. So Monsanto, they patented around 80% of the US corn, 86% of cotton, 92% of soybean. That's then. Now go on to current day statistics. How much do they control? So that's just go on a global level. Go on to different crops. So the global vegetable seed market. How much do they control of that? So look at the dynamics, the diversity. Previously, you had these we would say antique monopoly powers of oil giants, steel giants. Now it's the tech giants, the Microsofts and the Googles of the world, who've got a no competition monopoly, and the world doesn't realize what power these people have. So you don't need to control a nation by putting a gun to the head, but literally there are thousands of guns to our head and landmines below our feet being laden, and we happily accepting it. So this power has become consolidated due to these few corporations, and the consumers are blind. They don't have a clue of what's happening, and why we've been mentioning all of this here, so we can realize and we can combat these barons who are robbing humanity of their basic rights. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the understanding, protect one and all. The amal for today is to read salat with jama'ah, all our salah with jama'ah in the masjid, takbir ula, saf ula, and be very pardon about salat al-isha and fajr. Alama Tabarani has mentioned in his Mu'ajam one narration, although some ulama have commented, but for Fadila, Man salla al-isha fi jama'atin, whoever reads salat al-isha with jama'at, faqad akhadha bihadhihi min laylatil qadr. Yes, definitely taken his share from the night of Qadr, the night of power. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.